Welcome to Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom podcast. My name is Mompoloki Lerumo Mogobe. Our objective is to enthuse, inspire, energize, and empower entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs of all stripes here in BW and beyond. We do so by inviting these entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs into our makeshift studio. Sometimes we call them to the restaurant, sometimes we go to our studio, and we ask them to share their experiential knowledge, their experiences and their expertise. And we ask them as many questions as we can, aimed at empowering you also as a viewer. Hi, dear viewer and listener. The name again is Mogobe, Mompoloki Lerumo Mogobe, your host of this wonderful show, Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom podcast. Welcome. Once again, we try to bring you life-changing, empowering information relating to business, relating to entrepreneurship and other areas. Please hit the subscribe button. We need your support. We need your engagement. Please, it costs you nothing, but smash that subscribe button. My guest is Grace Nyasha Marea. Am I saying it correctly?
Very correctly.
Yeah. But I would like you to just take this time to give them, the viewers, a short CV in terms of, say a little bit about yourself.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me, and hello to everybody. My name is Nyasha Marea. Like you said, I'm the Group CEO of Loss Management Consultancy International. In terms of qualification, I'm a CILA, Chartered Institute of Loss Adjusters, Loss Adjuster by qualification. And I have been in loss management consultancy for 19 years now, going on to 20.
Okay.
Yes.
Just tell us about your academic background.
Academic background, I started off with administrative qualifications. That is what I had, your diploma in business administration and everything else that had to do with administration, because I had the intention of obviously going into entrepreneurship, and I knew that administration would be the thing for me. So I then eventually was capacitated to go into company formations, corporate legal law, and all of that as part of my qualifications, hence the reason why I'm able to expand across nations. Okay. Yes.
Where did you do your training?
My training was at Harare Polytechnic. That was the beginning, and I've trained with the University of Suffolk. I've also trained with Chartered Institute of Loss Adjusters and the Insurance Institute of South Africa as well.
Okay.
Yes.
What do you say is a working definition of loss management?
Loss management, in terms of a loss adjuster, this is where we manage, where we quantify, where we investigate losses, and all the way up to the reporting process for any contingencies that occur during, within the insurance fraternity.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Is it part of insurance?
We are service providers to insurance companies. Basically, we're almost like your middlemen. When a loss occurs, there is need for fair and equitable solutions. You'll find that's not the case, though. You'll find people saying insurance companies do not want to pay, and maybe some people accusing the policyholder of inflating their claim when they have a loss. So we come in to quantify the loss, verify it, check according to policy wording to say, are insurers liable or not? And if they're liable, how much should they pay? We quantify.
Okay.
Yes.
Is it part of a curial science?
I wouldn't call it part of a curial science, but what I would say, it's a very specialized service in itself. It's highly specialized, and the training that is there is literally by other loss adjusters, because even the Chartered Institute of Loss Adjusters will take you on after you have spent a number of years under a registered loss adjuster.
Okay.
Yeah.
What did you say to a skeptic that this is just a profession that helps the insurers avoid payment?
It actually is not a profession that helps insurers avoid payments, especially if you have been trained like I have done, because we are taught of the laws and the regulations that are in place of taking care of the policyholder. There's recently the TCF, Treat the Client Fairly law, that was adopted. I know in South Africa it must have been adopted last year. So as a qualified loss adjuster, we know of these laws, and it is our responsibility to raise them with insurers. And we are actually an independent party. That's why you'll find that most insurance companies do not have internal loss adjusters, because there's the issue of objectivity involved. Therefore, they need to get an independent party to come in.
Yes.
Yes.
And what about these laws that you're mentioning? Is there a significant aspect about them that is important to keep in mind when discussing this?
Yes, it is to, for example, this TCF that I'm talking about, the key outcome of the TCF is to ensure that policyholders understand that they're dealing with an insurance company that has customer service at the core of its operations, that desires to ensure that the client is treated fairly in all aspects, because you'll find that insurance is highly technical in nature, and the courts, for example, should a loss occur, they'll take into consideration the educational background, the understanding of contract law of the insurer, of the insured. So this is when you subscribe as an insurance company to say we operate under the TCF law, for example, you are showing that customer service is at the core, and treating the clients fairly is at the core of what you do.
Let's discuss for a moment your company, Loss Management Consultancy International. How did you come up with the name?
We manage losses as loss adjusters. It's loss management. Every time we encounter a client, it's because of a loss, unfortunately. So we are there, like I've said, the definition of a loss adjuster in themselves is managing losses, loss mitigation, investigation, quantification, validation, verification. This is all we are about.
So you wanted your identity in terms of what you do to be reflected in the name.
To be reflected in the name. So basically we are reflecting our identity.
Yes.
Yeah.
When was the company founded?
The company was founded in 2003, first of all in Zimbabwe, then into Botswana, then into Zambia, Mozambique, Malawi, and Eswatini.
You founded it?
Yes, it was me, co-founded between me and my husband, who was my business partner, best friend, and unfortunately I lost him to the fight against COVID in May of 2021. Thank you. Yeah.
So you must have been very young when you started.
Yes, I was very young. I was 25 when I started. Yes.
And what do you think really inspired him to start, or inspired the two of you to jump into the deep end and start a business?
He was a claims manager for a big insurance company, and like I've said, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, hence my studies in business administration. Business was my thing. As I was growing up, I always believed that I would be in business. Suffice to say, when I found a partner, I found somebody of like passion and like interest. So he would come home every time at night with thousands of files, and I would ask him, what are you doing? And he says, we've got a few loss adjusters in the country. There was a brain drain immediately after independence. And I said to him, can you not do this? What is going on? And he explains loss adjusting to me, and I'm like, no, you can do this. I can set up the company and you can be the technical, because you do have the technical background. And to be honest, as simple as that conversation, this is how we both quit our jobs and we went into business together, never to look back.
Yeah.
And we were actually not married then. I would be coming to visit and see him with all this work, and he doesn't spend time with me until I go back to my house, and it helped. Now we're in business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What special training did you yourself personally undergo?
Like I'm saying, it's the Chartered Institute of Loss Adjusters, University of Bournemouth in the UK.
Must be rigorous.
It is very rigorous. It has taken me, I believe, 5 years to finally get the qualification that I have, equivalent of a BCom degree in loss adjusting. And now I'm actually studying towards what would be the Masters of Loss Adjusting.
Okay, share a little bit on the geographic spread of the business.
Like I've said, we are in Zimbabwe, Zambia, Mozambique, Botswana, Malawi, and in Eswatini. We've been servicing for a very long time Eswatini from Mozambique. So we have been going through a bit of a lengthy process, but we're almost done of setting up a physical presence in Eswatini. So this is where we are at.
How did it all unfold to be all over SADC like this? You started with the Harare office, and then?
And then Botswana.
And then?
And then from Botswana, we reached out to Zambia, and then to Mozambique, and then to Malawi.
So what is your modus operandi, your system of operation that enabled you to replicate what you started in Harare, in Botswana, and everywhere?
We've got rigorous market research that we carry out because what drives us is the passion to provide a loss adjusting service by Africans for Africans. Because you will find that in Zimbabwe, after independence, when the brain drain came in, you'd find ex-policemen mainly going into the loss adjusting kind of career. But when we looked at my husband's qualification, for example, he was an engineer, so capable then of taking care of engineering insurance because he had been in insurance for a long time. And I say to myself, we can do this as Africans because it was mainly, there were not many Zimbabweans, if at all any, that were in loss adjusting. And I've seen that wherever we go, we are also creating our own competition. We teach the locals loss adjusting, they break away, they start their own entities. And for us, we say competition is good. So this is how we've been able to do it.
Growth.
We look across, we look across and we look for places where there's not that much skill. You'll find that we are not in South Africa yet because there is vast, supply of loss adjusters within South Africa.
The market is saturated there.
The market is saturated. They actually spill over into Botswana and compete with us here as well.
Yeah. And what does it take? What sort of expertise and manpower does it take to successfully create a conglomerate like you have done?
Within LMCI, like I'm saying, my husband was an engineer. We had a strong bias towards engineering and therefore engineering insurance. So you'll find that we've got civil engineers, mechanical engineers, industrial systems engineers, structural engineers within the group. But we also have noticed that the insurance in itself is very vast and diverse in nature. So you actually can employ quite a number of people outside of engineering because we don't do engineering claims every day. So you'll find that sometimes we've got other people like economists. We also have accountants because we've got the financial lines of insurance, like your business interruption that we are involved in. But I've also said to myself, our product is a report. It goes on ahead of us to our clients. It's the only thing that speaks for us. So I don't mind. I'm actually thinking we need to get journalists in our company, and we also need to get people who have a legal background because the insurance contract in itself is a legal contract. So there's a lot of other professions that can come in. Architectural designers can come in, structural engineers, like I've said, a whole array of qualifications can actually be brought in.
So in your current makeup, in your current staff complement, what professions do we have? Engineers, architects?
No, we've got engineers, we've got economists, we've got accountants. Yeah, that's the main of it. And then we've got the administration and support staff.
Okay.
Yes.
And how many people do you employ currently?
Roughly about 26, and then the administration and support staff.
Okay.
Yes.
So you could take it up to 100 if you include those?
No, it wouldn't go up to 100. We are below 30.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
I want you to explain a few terms because this area is fairly mysterious for most of us. So I'd like you to just take us through the terminology. Loss adjusting itself.
Okay.
What losses are you adjusting?
That is the core of our business. And in terms of loss adjusting, what we're saying is what I was describing, to say you've got an insurance policy, God forbid, your house is gutted down by fire. We're the independent party that comes in to investigate. Obviously, insurance will not pay for arson. So we're checking for the genuineness of the claim, to say you've put in a claim, did you not set your own house on fire? And we also check what the policy wording says.
How would you know?
We actually work with specialists such as the fire forensic investigators, where we feel that not even the fire brigade or the police have been able to unearth, and we still suspect from experience that it might be an arson case. This is where we engage the fire forensics, we give them the terms of reference, and they are able to tell by the patterns of the fire and the activity that they're seeing from the remains whether it was a case of arson or not. We've actually had claims where people have used, for example, kerosene to set their buildings alight, and they can pick that up. So yeah, we work with those.
You've had some claims repudiated because it was arson.
We quite a few, but yes, unfortunately so.
What would be the motive?
It's a good thing we are in many different nations, so nobody will know which nation I'm speaking of. Normally it is financial dire straits when the business is not performing well. and unfortunately somebody thinks perhaps they can benefit from insurance. You set it alight, you get paid, and maybe start something else. Yeah, but it comes normally from lack of understanding of what insurance is, because with insurance you can never profiteer. You're just brought back to the position that you were in prior to the loss.
Can an insurance company repudiate a claim without a report from a loss adjuster?
They're very small claims which they can handle internally because they know insurance. They are insurance people, and some of these cases are clear cases because what has happened is the policyholder and the insurer have entered into a contract together. So there are terms, there are conditions, there are warranties within this contract, and these things are clear between the policyholder and the insurer. So where there is so much clarity and the claim is very small, they can actually repudiate if it is not supposed to be paid out, and the circumstances are clearly showing so.
So most times you're invited in when it's a large claim?
Not necessarily. I think anything above here in Botswana, anything above 10,000 pula, insurers want to be fair to their clients and they are appointing a loss adjuster.
Okay.
Yes.
The issue of excess, a lot of this, whether it's an accident or a fire, there's excess involved. What is the point of having excess? And don't you find that sometimes this excess amount is prohibitive? It prevents the individual from claiming.
Not really. Excess actually helps you as an insured to participate in your policy because you know that you bear a certain level of responsibility for your claim. You'll find that you're not going to be reckless, for example, with your driving. If you know to say, okay, if I'm involved in an accident, the first 3,500 pula has to come from my pocket. So it makes it participative to on the side of the policyholder. And then there's what they call excess buyback, where you can actually lower your levels of excess. We're talking about the big insureds who have very, very large properties to insure. Some can actually take up an excess of, we've got a client that we know within the market that has an excess of around 500,000 pula, up to 5 million pula. They can handle it because they are that big. So the first 5 million on the first 500 when they have a loss is theirs. But if they feel it's too much, they can actually do what is called an excess buyback and lower the excess level.
Wow,
Yes.
very interesting. Another term I would like you to simplify for us is risk management surveys. When do those become relevant and who does them?
Okay, an insurance contract, like I've said, is a legal document and it normally has an anniversary, most of them normally at 1 year, some can be more than 1 year. So at the anniversary stage, for example, when it's due for renewal, the insurer would like to know what the risk looks like after 1 or 2 years of having insured it. So they send the surveyor, who now goes on site and becomes the eyes and the ears of the insurer to say, has anything changed on that risk? And what we look at is, we call them the cope factors, the construction.
Which one?
We call them cope factors. We're looking at the construction to say, has anything material happened with the construction in the last 1 to 2 years or whatever period the cover was for. For example, somebody can decommission a sprinkler system that is serious and it will increase the risk, or somebody can turn their building from Harvey tiles to thatch, and that is also something that increases the risk. So we go in and we look at the construction, the occupancy, what are they doing within the building.
That's you conducting the survey?
Yes, that's us conducting the surveys. We look at the protection measures. What sort of protection measures do they have? The sprinklers, the fire alarm systems. It's not only for fire, it's for fire and allied perils. And then we look at the exposure, which is what sort of, risks is the property exposed to. And then after that, we write down a list of recommendations, and we can tell insurers whether a property is worth continuing to cover, or tell them the recommendations that a client can put in place so that the property can be covered by insurance, because they also need to limit their risk. And rarely, but unfortunately so sometimes, we can actually advise to say, you can come off cover on this risk. It's not insurable. It's an accident waiting to happen.
It's very rare.
It's very rare because everybody looks like they are understanding what insurance is, to say it's a risk transfer mechanism. You can only be in business if you can insure. Otherwise, you're going to bear the brunt should anything happen.
Yeah. Perhaps one thing I pick from what you're saying is that insurance is a risk transfer mechanism.
Yes.
Perhaps you can illustrate with examples to make that clearer to the viewer.
Okay, to make it clear, so I'll simplify very much. Somebody would like to start maybe a dentistry practice or any business that they would want, but they think and say, what if I leave my job, take my terminal benefits, invest in this business, and I wake up and find my office empty the next day? What then happens to me? So you've got choices. You can
Empty
avoid
as in gutted by fire.
gutted by fire or stolen. Anything can happen, you've lost everything that you invested. So you've got different responses to that. You can either avoid the risk and just not go into business and continue working, or you can transfer the risk and say, I will insure, so that the insurers can restore me to my pre-loss condition should any insurable risk occur.
That's the transfer.
That's the transfer.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, let's then talk about asset valuations. How do you go about achieving those? First, why are they important? And at whose instance you do them? And why are they?
Okay.
How do you go about doing them?
Asset valuations are important in that the key principle of insurance is indemnification to the position you were in before the loss. So you've got to ensure, the policy actually says the onus lies on the insured to make sure that they're insured for the correct value, because there's a principle called the principle of average, which says if you at the time of encountering a loss discover that you are not insured for the correct value of your property, it means insurers have not been collecting adequate premium, therefore they cannot also pay out adequately to you. In essence, you become your own insurer in the same proportion to which you have been underinsured.
Whatever lesser amount you've been paying.
Yes, you do get paid, but that amount is going to be less than what you ought to have gotten, because your value that you had insured is actually less, which means insurers were also collecting a less premium. It's fair in its calculations. There's
You
actually
don't think
a
you're
calculation
punishing someone for their own mistakes of
it
undervaluing?
is, it's a contract, and you've agreed to say you will ensure that your property is insured for this value. And we always say, as loss adjusters, the insured knows their risk better. Even when we bring out recommendations in risk surveys, you'll find that we allow room for negotiation on certain recommendations, because where we use industry standards and best practice, they actually live on that property and they know what would work better. So there are times where we can actually compromise and adopt certain means of mitigating losses. So it's the same thing with valuing your property. You know the true value of your property. You know what you stand to lose should you lose your property, and therefore declare that to insurers and get adequate cover.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are there instances where it can be a basis for a complete repudiation if the amount you've insured for is a lot less than the actual fair market value?
Not at all. You actually get something because you were putting in something. The only time I've seen in insurance where there can be a complete repudiation is in cases of fraud, because fraud is not tolerated at all within insurance, because it destroys the market.
Okay. Speaking of fraud, are you able to share an instance, without mentioning names, where it was particularly challenging for you and you discovered that it was fraud?
It's never a challenge. When it's fraud, it's fraud. It is what it is.
A challenge to discover it.
To discover it. Like we've said, we get help from the forensics, we get help from the police. We're actually doing training on fraud. I was training my team on fraud right now because as a SEALA loss adjuster, I got to know from the SEALA specialist group, there's an anti-fraud specialist group, that fraud is on the increase, because what you have is when you've got a global crisis, a financial crisis, the response is that fraudulent claims go on the increase. So unfortunately now we have to train each other on fraud. We've got to be aware, because as a loss adjuster we do not want to be called accomplices to fraud because we missed out on a fraudulent case. So basically fraud is what it is. It can actually be picked up.
That's why I want an example.
Okay.
From actual example of what you experienced, how you unearthed it, what happened.
Okay, I'll give an
Chapter and
example
verse.
that I am using in my trainings. It's from the SEALA Anti-Fraud Specialist Group. It is actually a tried claim in the UK where a liquor store equivalent of Liquorama suffered loss. The alcohol, beverages and cigars were stolen, and they put in quite a hefty claim. And having put in quite a hefty claim, the loss adjuster comes on site, asks for documentation, and unfortunately they are failing to produce certain documents that the loss adjuster is asking for. The loss adjuster becomes a bit suspicious and lets principals know, and they involve the police. Because now they've involved the police, there were banks within vicinity of the store. They had to ask for CCTV footage, and when they saw the CCTV footages from all the surrounding areas, what turned out was true. The insured had suffered a loss, but unfortunately it was just a petty theft where the perpetrator actually left with just 2 paper bags, and yet they were claiming almost like a truckload of stock. Suffice to say that it turned out to be a police case. It was embarrassing for the directors of the organization involved, and there was prosecution and obviously repudiation of the claim with no return of the premium that the insured had paid in.
Which is contractual.
It is contractual, yes.
What about closer to home? Such examples around here, Botswana, Southern Africa?
What we experience mainly would be a bit of your petty kind of fraud, and sometimes it comes from the insured not understanding that they're actually involved in fraudulent activity where their house is broken into and they add on items, or they want a bigger TV, or sometimes they actually tell the repairer to say, okay, the insurers are coming, please put burglar bars on my window. We call that betterment. It's not allowed. You're supposed to be restored to the position you were in before the loss occurred. So we've got a lot of that, and once you explain to the client and they understand, I mean, we are taught, as a SELA loss adjuster, I'm taught to judge the intent. So I cannot declare fraud where the person who has perpetrated the fraud has done so unknowingly, because fraud actually has a legal definition.
How can you want burglar bars added when they were not there and not be intentionally fraudulent?
Some people do not read their contracts. They do not understand the level of the education. So as you speak to them, you can actually, they will openly admit to say, yes, I've been paying premium and I want burglar bars. And you explain to them insurance doesn't work this way, and they apologize and they are willing to drop the claim. But we let principals know to say this is what has happened in case they want to take it up as fraud. But would they win in court? Because like I'm saying, fraud has a legal definition. Like we're saying, insurance is a legal contract governed by contract law, statutory law, and common law. So now fraud actually has a legal definition. So as a loss adjuster, you also advise insurers to say, will you win in court if you accuse the insured of fraud? And there's case law to follow, and sometimes not. And because of lack of evidence, there's no need to take it up that way. You just remove the elements that are betterment and everything is sorted.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, you're the only woman in this industry of loss adjustment, loss management. Am I right?
No. It is very male dominated, I would say, yes.
Are you not the only woman CEO?
I do know one who actually partnered with somebody who broke away from LMCI. She's also a woman CEO, co-partnering with an ex-LMCI colleague.
So you're a rare
here
breed,
in Botswana.
just maybe a handful of women.
No, it's quite a handful, to be honest. Yes, I do go for loss adjusting directors meetings in the UK, where I'm literally the only loss adjuster in the meetings. Yes, even on the boards of LMCI. As the loss adjuster, yes, I'm the only female there, so yes, to a certain extent.
How is it then managing and surviving in a male-dominated world?
I believe this has to do with you as a person. I've said I will not take it. There are lots of other issues that have to do with inclusion, diversity, and we cannot narrow it down to being women. Yes, there is need to look at unfortunate stereotypes that have developed, because whether we like it or not, most of the companies or entities across the globe are still predominantly male-led. So that comes with some certain stereotypes of its own. You'll have people trying to explain it away as either something that has to do with qualification and experience. But when you look at the people who are
Can you clarify that with an instance or an example when you say stereotypes?
It's well, the example that I can give has to do with people believing that ladies are not qualified to do maybe what men are doing. Just to give a funny example, just for the laughs of the audience, my husband has a presentation that he would share on loss adjusting, and because he was a technical guru, engineering, insurance, he would then put Lego men in the presentation just to make it more fun and to make things a bit simpler. Cut a long story short, I took over the presentation, went in, same words, same Lego, same presentation, and where he would get a standing ovation to say he has spoken well, I would get, oh, that's a very cute presentation, and what is being addressed is the Lego. And I ended up asking myself to say, does it have anything to do with the gender of the presenter? But look, I didn't want to attach any stereotypes to that, but I'm just saying sometimes there's certain instances where perhaps
the behavior changed completely.
Behavior changed completely because unfortunately I'm coming in after a male leader, so there's certain things that I see which have differed because I worked with this male leader for 18 years. So I know the responses he would get and I gauge against the responses, but to be honest, I have gotten the support and the confidence of the market. It has been fair. They've opened up to me, so it's up to me to demonstrate the skill and the qualification.
Okay, as CEO, what are the major challenges, if any, that you have faced?
Every CEO will tell you of the COVID challenge. I am CEO because of a COVID challenge, and I still had about 3-4 more years to get to the position of group CEO, because eventually my husband would sit at the helm of the boards of LMCI and go into corporate governance. He was very passionate about helping SMEs to set up because he believed that they lack in governance, which would actually beget finances for them. So I was being trained to take over, but within 3 or 4 years, but immediately that was fast-tracked, and I find myself here. So that is the challenge for me for COVID and everything else that comes for a leader that we are faced with because of the pandemic. And then we also, like I was saying, wherever there has been a global crisis that touches on finances, you will see inflation on the rise, and you will see issues such as the frauds that I was addressing coming in. So there's COVID, there's inflation, and there's also something that I'm seeing in the insurance market, which is change in customer behavior.
In what
Insurance is a service. So whenever people get squeezed for finances, the first thing that they let go is service. If, for example, it wasn't mandatory by law to have a third-party insurance, I think nobody would insure their vehicles. They would say, I'll drive safely and make sure I don't get involved in an accident. So you'll find people now skipping on insurance because what you are insuring basically is a promise. You are paying a premium just based on a promise to say, we will do this when you suffer a loss. And some people say, for 20 years, I've insured and I've not suffered a loss. So there's that kind of change. And then also, unfortunately, when a claim occurs, the insured might feel entitled to an indemnity even if the claim is not covered, to say, I've been paying for 20 years and we're in a pandemic, why will you not give me anything? But the contract still remains the same even in a pandemic.
What did you say to the average person in the street who says that insurance companies have rigged the game in their favor? The way these contracts are worded, you never have a chance to negotiate them. They're always interpreted against you because of the wording. That it's not as if you have a chance. You're dealing with an equal player. And for that reason, some people feel that insurance is a bit of a scam. What did you say to such talk?
First of all, I would like to debunk the myth that insurance is a scam. I read insurance contracts, I read contract law, that's what I do as a loss adjuster. I study case law as well and cases that go to court. And you can tell to say, yes, where in circumstances where there's been unfairness, and the only unfairness mostly that I've seen as a loss adjuster is failure to explain and to comprehend between the two parties, which is why it is very important also for insurance companies to make sure that for any particular type of claim, they're getting the specialized loss adjuster for that type of claim, because if the loss adjuster fails to interpret policy, they can repudiate a claim which is covered, or they can cause a claim that is not covered to be paid out, which is something else to talk about, really. So the insurance contract in itself is something that the client can interact with, and I would actually say, when
you foresee the insurance company amending a paragraph if the client says change this? Do they ever do that?
What can I say? The insurance contract is more or less kind of generic, but what we're seeing as loss adjusters these days is insurers actually, in trying to be competitive, are changing their policy wording, first of all, to make it simpler for the policyholder to understand, because that contract is what it is. If you stick by it, you get the full benefits of it. I'm a loss adjuster. When I go into a loss, I get paid because I make sure that strictly I abide by the letters of the law, because I understand what it means for me tomorrow when I encounter a claim.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, I always ask on behalf of the youngsters out there whether there's zaga, there's serious money in this particular industry that I'm discussing. So is there serious cash in the insurance business or in the loss management business?
I wish I could say yes, but there is serious opportunity to establish yourself and to become successful in what you do. Loss adjusting is a calling. I've always told my team to say, if you're a 9-to-5 kind of person, you will not make it in loss adjusting. We deal with people who have suffered losses. We work around the clock, and sometimes we find that you have done this huge survey, and when you want to invoice, the premium that the insured is getting is not much, and you've got to lower your invoice to fit in within that little percentage that they are getting. So, but one thing that I've seen about loss adjusting is it is rewarding. Once you establish your name and you are known as the expert, yes, people are willing to pay for a good service. So there is fairness, there's an opportunity to get paid, but do not come in expecting to be paid for shoddy work. You come in, you deliver, and you get paid as an expert.
Okay, for that to happen, then what sets you apart? What puts you head and shoulders above the rest as a consultancy?
As a consultancy, for me, it's getting the right type of loss adjusters. Loss adjusting has mainly been because it's a consultancy. We've found people coming in as one-man bands. They can actually just say, because of their experience in the insurance market, they now break away as a loss adjuster. But for us as LMCI, we had the vision of taking loss adjusting into Africa by Africans, like I said, and then also taking it outside of Africa. That's what we believe is our vision. So there's, suffice to say that we are competing against the globe as a whole. And as I speak right now, we are actually in collaboration with global loss adjusters. They're called Advanta Global. They are based in the UK, so we work together. We are in a partnership so that we are also benchmarking our standards against Advanta. This is how we set up ourselves apart from competition. So we know as LMCI, for example, that whatever losses that are heavily internationally reinsured, as loss adjusters, because we are partnered with Advanta, we get the first preference because international reinsurers know Advanta, and if Advanta vouches for LMCI, LMCI comes in, but we must ensure that our expertise is at international level. Otherwise, Advanta would not want to partner with us.
There are companies like Geico, I don't know whether you know them, based in America. Geico. Yeah, you know them?
No.
Oh, okay. Who are reinsurers, and the others which are insurers. What is the relationship between insurers and reinsurers and loss adjusters?
Okay, both the reinsurer and the insurer are our clients as loss adjusters. We do work for them. The reinsurer is the insurer of the insurer. When an insurance company takes up a risk that is very large, they also insure a part of the risk, and this is where reinsurers come in.
And the reinsurers never deal directly with the customers?
Reinsurers do not deal directly with the clients because they deal with insurance companies. So you'll find insurance companies have agents or brokers. Reinsurance companies actually also have reinsurance brokers that do placements for them and all sorts.
So in the Botswana situation, who are the insurers, who are the reinsurers?
In Botswana, I know of Continental Re. there are actually other reinsurance companies who are now penetrating the market. I know Grand Re is now in, and today as we speak, I believe it's FM Re that is opening. They're actually doing a cocktail to open. So you've got reinsurers now coming into the Botswana market, and we have Baobab Re. I'm getting the name wrong because
And
they have
both
changed
of
it.
them would
Yes.
want you to report. In other words, the reinsurer might be feeling that the insurer is submitting a questionable claim, and they invite you to come in and investigate.
When an insurer suffers a claim that is reinsured, they will appoint the loss adjuster, and sometimes they can check with reinsurers, like I was saying, for heavily internationally reinsured portfolios. If they're that large, the reinsurer has a strong say on who should be appointed, especially if they're carrying the bulk of the risk.
Okay.
So they can either advise insurers to say, please appoint LMCI, and then as LMCI we come in, we do our report. Now, as loss adjusters who understand that a claim is reinsured, we actually seek an audience with the reinsurers, because we otherwise suffer a place where we submit our report and then reinsurers start asking questions from that report, and it delays settlement of the claim, whereas the rule of the loss adjuster is to make sure that genuine claims are settled as quickly and as equitable as possible. So we defeat that
Now,
purpose.
do the insurers bundle these claims up and submit them to the reinsurers in bulk, or it's one-on-one? How does it work?
I am not an insurer, so I would not know how reinsurance works, but all we know is for any risks that are large and they cannot carry
Larger
on
than more
themselves, they would determine, depending on their books. They know their books, they know what sort of risk they can pay out, because insurers like to pay claims. It is good for them when they pay claims. So if you take up or underwrite a portfolio that you can then not manage should a loss occur, then you are shooting yourself in the foot as insurers. So that's why they then turn to reinsurers. But normally you'll find that the policyholder knows the insurance company, normally not the reinsurer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Now, this question is now I'm asking on behalf of the youngsters out there, in terms of how they can position themselves to really have a dent in this industry. So my question is, what are the academic specializations, and more than that, in terms of activities or orientations that one needs to be able to be successful in the industry, to have successful careers within the industry?
Okay, I'll go back to what I said about the insurance market being very vast and diverse in nature, such that a lot of, what can I say, qualification holders can actually find space in loss adjusting. We do not have the luxury of specializing, but within Advanta, for
Because of the
example,
size of the market.
because of the size of the market, but within, for example, Advanta, like I'm saying, we are with them as partners. There is specialist loss adjusters for various areas. So if you're an engineer, you'll specialize in engineering insurance. If you're an accountant, you can specialize in business interruption insurance. And if you are somebody with a background, a legal background, maybe you can specialize on liability claims. And there's a whole lot more. So we are talking about engineers, we're talking about lawyers, I was talking about journalists, I'm talking about almost anything really. If it can be insured, it needs an expert when the loss occurs, because sometimes we need to bring in experts.
You said journalists. How does a journalist come in?
A journalist knows the right questions to ask. They know how to report back. So you definitely know that you've got something that is accurate. Because like I've said, with loss adjusting, it is specialized, but you work under a qualified loss adjuster. There are actually years that you can, what can I say, operate under a loss adjuster and still not be called a loss adjuster. You need at least up to about 5 to 7 years for us to then say you're an established loss adjuster. Yeah, because of the vastness of what it is that we do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you involved in any social and community causes?
As an individual, I'm an assistant pastor in Celebration Church. It's voluntary. It's not like employment where I do get paid and so forth. And in particular, I'm a family ministries pastor. I take care of the ladies. So we do ladies meetings where we empower women, we teach them everything to do, whether single or married, that will empower them in the workspace and also in their personal lives, and how to be responsible citizens. We also look into married couples. We believe that nations are made up of strong marriages. If we can strengthen a marriage, then we have built up a nation. So we also look into the family aspect. And then in terms of LMCI, I also do speaking engagements such as these. I like to come out and share whatever knowledge that I have, be it on loss adjusting, be it on things that have to do with family, like I'm saying. And then also as an organization, we have adopted a primary school where we are doing compassion work, especially in memory of my husband, because he taught us as loss adjusters to always do everything that we do, including our day-to-day work, as community service, because we are doing it with a passion and uniquely caring for our customers. So we launched a compassion arm. It's called compassion. It's called what? Oh, compassion box. It's still new.
Yeah.
We launched it, and now under that arm, we are going to be reaching out compassionately and sewing back as a responsible corporate
I
citizen.
think we'll have to come back on the nuggets to discuss that one.
That would
It's a
be
whole
lovely.
chapter on itself.
It is a whole chapter on
Yeah.
itself.
But do you believe that part of the reason that MCI is doing so well is because of the solid foundation as in the marriage? that you had with your husband?
LMCI did well because of that solid foundation, because we worked together, we understood what we needed to invest in terms of our time, in terms of our resources, in terms of the commitment, and we understood at one time we had to sacrifice even time with our loved ones, time with our children, but because we were together working as one, we understood and we were able to withstand the pressures because we were together encouraging each other. We would pick each other up. So yes, to a certain extent, that really helped. And also to say our qualifications complemented each other, me with the administration to set up the companies, and then eventually becoming a legal loss adjuster, and then him doing the complex engineering insurance. We would exchange. There would be heated exchanges, but they were good.
Yeah.
Yes.
Speaking of heated exchanges, I worked with my wife in my business when I was still running a law firm for 7 years. And I know friends of mine who are businessmen who say never would they dare work with their spouse without putting the marriage under pressure. And I'm sure you are here to debunk that myth.
That one I will debunk without thinking twice. My husband and I were more of friends than anything else. And we understood our relationship to say, we are at work, this is boss subordinate, we are now at home, I am running the show, we are now in ministry.
You swap positions
we
when you get
swapped positions, so
when you
he
get
could
home.
pay for something that happened at work when we got home. And then also in ministry, now this is where we co-labored together. We were equals, we were in ministry. I mean, obviously in the marriage we were equal as well. And even at work, he was a great leader. He drew me out. He's the one who made me passionate about loss adjusting enough to go and get that rigorous kind of training. So yeah.
If there's ever a blind spot, or if there's ever what you could say setbacks that can come in this industry, what would you say? In other words, what are the negatives, if any?
In the insurance industry?
Yes, and especially in the context of LMCI.
The only thing that can happen wrong in the insurance industry, to be honest, is when fraudulent claims are allowed to go through. I've been telling my team, because this week we have been dealing with fraud and fraud and fraud, to say as loss adjusters we need to be rigorous, we need to be vigilant, we need to understand what this is, because when we allow fraudulent claims to go in, or when we wrongly point a finger at a client when they have not been fraudulent because we don't understand what fraud is as loss adjusters, we cause the confidence in the insurance market to go down. And once that confidence goes down, then you've got the allegations that you were talking about, to say insurance companies do not want to pay. And once that happens, people move out of insurance. As LMCI, we exist to bring value into the insurance market. So where there is no insurance, there is no LMCI. We exist to ensure that there is equitable settlements so that people are confident in the insurance market and they continue to insure. We actually offer market trainings, like in Mozambique when Cyclone Idai came. There is a certain way
What is
that
it called, the cyclone?
Cyclone Idai. The very
Idai. Idai,
yes,
okay.
Yes. There've been others after that one, but that one was so significant and it caught people off guard. And as loss adjusters, we watched the process as we worked to say what is the response time like, how many claims are getting paid, what sort of margins of average are being applied here, percentages of average and so forth. And it was not a very pretty sight, so we decided to call out the insurance market, which was the reinsurers, the insurers, and anyone within the insurance fraternity whom we felt had influence on how claims are handled. And we discussed and shared with them what we saw as loss adjusters with a strategic perspective on how to prepare should another cyclone hit. So we were highlighting as loss adjusters to say we want to instill confidence or restore confidence in the market after such a happening. So as in reinsurers or insurers, how do we prepare ourselves to respond to such a catastrophe should it happen again? So
can you really prepare for quote unquote an act of God like that?
You cannot really prepare, but you can learn from mistakes. Once you have seen the way Cyclone Idai was handled, now you are smarter. The old adage, once beaten, twice shy. So we worked together. It was more like trying to see how we can pull together as loss adjusters, insurers, and brokers to say, should anything happen like this, how can we show the policyholder that we are here for you? And as long as your claim is genuine, it will be speedily responded to and settled in good time. Yeah.
Now let's talk about the vision thing. Grab that crystal ball and tell us what you see coming out of this. Let's go beyond even 5 years, 10 years, 15 years.
As LMCI, we want to be the leading loss adjuster of choice, really. We are aiming higher than the sky itself. The sky is not even the limit for us. When we look at what we want to do, we want to be known for value and expertise, adding value and expertise into the insurance market. And like we've said, we are on a global expansion thrust. We do not want to end in Africa. I do not know whether that will happen in my generation. I know my husband has passed the baton on to me as the next generation, and I wake up every morning going through our vision. It is written down, it is clear, and I ask myself to say, what strategies can I deploy or employ to ensure that when I pass the baton down to the next generation, we
your
are
children.
if they're interested, yes, hopefully so.
Yeah.
But so far not so. We are putting succession planning in place to ensure that it can only get stronger with the next generation.
I read
comes
somewhere
in.
that the Jewish community, it's actually a commandment for them to teach their children how to make money, and they can only do so by involving their children in their businesses. We're not doing enough of that as Africans.
We are not doing enough of that as Africans because it is something that does work, but I believe that everybody has the freedom of choice. Our children are born with different gifts, with different talents, and what we are there as responsible stewards to do is to channel them towards their passion so that they can be the best version of themselves that they can be. I cannot live out the loss adjusting that I didn't finish in the life of my children. I've got to find the born loss adjusters in themselves who are passionate about loss adjusting. It was a bitter pill to swallow, but as a leader,
That's
I
why
need
we
to
can't
understand.
spoon feed them. They have to take the initiative themselves.
They have to take the initiative. Yes, I have seen one amongst my children, the least likely actually, who is showing interest because she happens to be a girl. So LMCI might be handed down to a girl CEO.
Yeah.
No, that is just for jokes, but I'm saying honestly, if any
But
one of them
she's showing more
shows-
interest than the boy.
She's shown more interest, but mainly because I had to have that conversation with them, because if they were interested, they needed them to align their studies in loss adjusting. So yes, whatever it is that they're doing, I am well capable of putting them into loss adjusting and training them to become loss adjusters based on what they've said they all want to do. One wants to become a lawyer, both of the other two want to become engineers. So
And all those professions are relevant
they
to
are
loss adjustment.
relevant to loss adjusting. So I'm watching their space, but I also understand that I need to allow them to be.
So when you say you want to go global, are you thinking New York, London, the Far East?
Obviously, we've got Advanta in London, so we've got inroads in London already. So I do not think there's any need for us to fight to be in there. And then also, Advanta is global in its nature; they're across the globe. So we want to ride on their back, but it is
They're
basically
your partners, right?
They are our partners. We are partners together. We have a collaboration. Yes. So because we are benchmarking our skill against what it is that we do, because there's a lot of exchange that goes on when we do claims with Advanta, to a point where we can actually just say, we stress test what we are doing as loss adjusters. So we are very confident that wherever we are going to find ourselves in, whether in the USA, in the UK, in any place outside of Africa, we will thrive, because we are setting our standards against internationally acceptable standards.
Since you're in the business of busting myths and debunking them,
Yes.
what is the biggest myth about loss adjustment, and what did you say about it?
The biggest myth about loss adjusting is if you have worked for a loss adjuster for 2 years and you think you're a loss adjuster and can go your way, I would say please stay. If you're under a loss adjuster, learn all you have to learn, as much of it as possible, and then take off when you're fully conversant with what you are doing, because I am passionate about the loss adjusting field. It is a specialized field in itself. We are like your doctors, we are like your lawyers, but unfortunately, a nurse cannot wake up and call themselves a doctor one day. But it's only, I've said it's only in loss adjusting where somebody wakes up and then they call themselves a loss adjuster after 2 years. That's not it. May I encourage people to learn as much as they can, so that when they take up, I was saying up to about 5 years, 5 to 7.
And they should really immerse themselves. They should do courses online, etc.
Yes, and even CILA is available. Get those qualifications.
Which one?
CILA, Chartered Institute of Loss Adjusters. Yes, so get the qualifications so that when you go out, we carry ourselves as the professionals that we are. Because you find people now calling us. I was actually just laughing with my team and I'm saying, if you hear anyone just calling you with a funny tonation to the loss adjuster, know that you have not demonstrated the professionalism that we carry as loss adjusters. When you see a doctor, you don't call them in some funny manner, it's doctor, with respect. So the same must come to us when we demonstrate professionalism. But if we leave early and we go in and we say we are there, people don't understand this industry of loss adjusting. They will be kind enough and give you the work, but what are we making out of this profession? We will destroy the profession in itself. So even the Bible, I'm a pastor, says study to show yourself approved as a workman.
I think you need to repeat that.
Be ashamed.
You need to repeat that. I think the viewer needs to hear that. Can you say that again?
Study to show yourself approved as a workman who does not need to be ashamed. When you go to a meeting, you can stand confidently and answer for why you did certain things, because you are well studied. Because loss adjusting is not something that is T's and X's crossed neatly. It's certain derivations of facts that lead you to a conclusion. So you need to be able to express as a loss adjuster how you have arrived at this conclusion, how you have arrived at this figure, and you can only do that when you're well studied.
And you also have to put it in a report, a detailed report.
A detailed report, yes. And sometimes that will find itself. I've gotten calls from Switzerland, from Munich. You've got your report here, and I didn't know it was a reinsured risk. So that happens. And now when you've done it well, it speaks for you, because should a claim come in, they'll say, please call LMCI.
Yes. How can one track the LMCI journey and get in touch with the company for its services? That question I'm going to put to you at the end, where you share your contacts. Now is your chance to ask me a question.
Thank you for that opportunity. That was my happiest opportunity to say I've not only come here to give out, but I've also come to receive a nugget of wisdom from the man himself. How has it been for you being an entrepreneur? I know you're Motswana, and we would think maybe it's easy for you to set up in your own home country, but I would like you to just share your unique experience, because every entrepreneurial journey is unique in its nature. Is there anything you can share with me?
My
on
story
your
is a bit
experience?
long, so I'm writing a book.
Wow.
So I'm going to contact you when I've written it. But what I'd like to let you know is that it's a roller coaster ride, but it's also a labor of love. If you try to have the same kind of attitude when you are in the troughs as you do when you are on the top side. So don't just enjoy life when you are on the upper wave. Also when you are in the valleys and the trough, try and work your way through that, so that you are in control of your temperament, your mood, and your attitude to life. You know that Newton's law says what goes up must come down. What goes down must. So it's just that attitude of expecting things to go up and down and trying to hold on throughout that. And in terms of going to greater detail, you'll have to wait for the book.
I am waiting. I'm your number one customer. I'll buy the first copy. Thank you so much. I was really keen on this immediately. I knew I could ask a question, and I've received well what you've said as a fellow entrepreneur, and we'll put it in practice.
Okay.
Yes.
Take a look at that camera and then answer the question that I asked you earlier in terms of sharing your contacts. Actually, what you could do is just share your basic services succinctly, and then tell people how they can get in touch with you.
Okay. Our clients, the insurance companies, know us. They have our details because we deal mainly with insurance companies. But for the public, we do vehicle valuations. If you want to renew your insurance contract, please do contact LMCI for an insurance vehicle valuation. We also do asset valuations for insurance purposes. If you're not sure whether your house is adequately insured, you can call us in and we can offer you asset valuation services. We also do plant valuations, plant and equipment valuations as well for the corporates. But please note that these ones are for insurance purposes. There's certain values that we include that make them unique to insurance. And you can reach me on 751 95302. I'll say that again, 751 95302. Our landline is 391 622305. 391 622305. You will find us on almost every media platform. We are on Facebook, we are on LinkedIn, we are on Twitter. This is us as LMCI. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You've been a powerful guest.
Thank you, sir. It's been a pleasure being here.
All right. Cheers.
Thank you.